Happy noon. Welcome to Bible study for Seekers and Skeptics for August the 21st of 2020. After today, we will take a break, and despite some back and forth in my recommendations and deliberations, I would like to project the Friday after, actually 2 Fridays after September the 13th for our next Bible study time. Maybe by that time we will be ready to meet together again face to face in a socially distanced atmosphere. What do you think? Send me a email response and let me know if you're ready for that. Hopefully things will continue to improve, and yeah, let me know. But we'll shoot for starting that Friday, 2 Fridays after September the 13th. I'm sorry I don't have a calendar handy. But today we will finish our study of the book of Philippians, and it's hard to believe that we started this so long ago. It's a wonderful book. There's so many things here, so rich and full. Today, the last half of chapter 4, and Paul says, beginning in verse 10, I rejoice, there's that word again, and it's been used so often. However, my Greek professor, one of my several Greek professors in seminary, James Blevins, with whom I did the translation of Philippians, said it's important that we don't let all the joy and rejoice words throw us off, because obviously we've come through some very serious kinds of things here. But nonetheless, there was joy in Paul's attitude, in his recommendations, and obviously in the church to whom he wrote. All right. I rejoice in the Lord greatly now, at last you have revived your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned for me, but had no opportunity to show it. Not that I'm referring to being in need, for I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and of being in need. I can do all things through the one who strengthens me. In any case, it was kind of you to share my distress. You Philippians, indeed, know that in the early days of the gospel, when I left Macedonia, no church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving, except you alone. For even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent me help for my needs more than once. Not that I seek the gift, but I seek the profit that accumulates in your account. I've been paid in full and have more than enough. I'm fully satisfied now that I've received from Epaphroditus the gift you sent, a fragrant offering, a sacrifice acceptable and pleasing to God. And my God will fully satisfy every need of yours according to God's riches and glory in Jesus the Anointed One. About to wind down here. To our God be glory forever and ever. Amen. And then his benediction. Greet every saint in Jesus the Anointed One. The friends who are with me greet you. Oh, he's made some friends there in Rome. Remember, he's in prison. All the saints greet you. Listen to this. Especially those of the emperor's household. He's made friends with people who work right up close and personal with the emperor himself. And finally, the last verse, the grace of Jesus the Anointed One be with your spirit. Paul claims here that he had learned through experience, of course, to be content. Boy, is that a powerful and a heavy word. That he had learned to be content in all circumstances, feast or famine, good times and bad times. Did not mean that he liked being hungry, did not mean that he liked sitting there in the cell wondering if the emperor was going to call for his execution at any moment, did not mean that he liked being put down and reminded that in his life before his conversion he was on the opposite side, did not mean that he liked those things. Also did not mean that he became overly engaged with the good times when they came along, but he had learned to be content. And that, after all, is the goal, isn't it? Not to become wedded to the circumstances in which we find ourselves at any given moment in time, because, oh my God, can they change? And if we haven't lived through them before, we're living through them now in this pandemic. Geez. A few months ago, I could get in my car and go where I wanted to, when I wanted to, and be with who I wanted to, without giving it a second thought. Now, this is a small example on my part, but that's a big deal to me as somebody who's been independent all of his life, somebody who's worked to have enough funds to do a few things, to travel to see my family in Tennessee when I wanted to travel wherever my kids might be at the moment, to Ireland or Oregon or Baltimore or Annapolis, wherever they may be, or jump on the train to go see a play. Those I thought were just little things, and now they're big things. It's a big challenge for many of us right now, isn't it, to learn to be content with the restrictions that are placed upon us. A bigger challenge than others. Paul's talking about circumstances that are much more far-flung than what I'm talking about here. But that's very important. And I would go so far as to say that the happiest people that I know, including in our little circle here and far beyond, are not the people who have the most wealth or the most prestige or opportunity, but the people who learn to go with the flow and who learn that true happiness is beneath the surface. Yeah. Things change, times change, circumstances change. The people we're privileged to be around in this time that we're living through, whenever that may be, that can change. Children grow up and move away. The empty nest occurs. Things change. If we're going to be content in life, we have to focus on something other than outward circumstances. And we have to be prepared, some kind of way, to take it when life kicks us in the gut, when the hard times come, and when uncertainty is a part of the picture. And Paul believed that he had accomplished that. And he's thanking the Christians at Philippi for helping him through the hard times by sending money for food, by sending companionship in the person of Epaphroditus, other kinds of encouragement. And he thanks them profoundly, but he wants them to know that they don't have to worry about him, because he has learned a secret he wants to share with them. And that is that it is possible to be content in life. even when things are not going our way. And even when things look like they may not go our way, now or in the foreseeable future. All right then, Paul, what's the secret of your secret? Spill it. There it is. I can do all things through Christ, through the Anointed One, who strengthens me. Wow. Paul doesn't do things in his own strength, and neither do we, but we're not passive puppets either. We're encouraged and uplifted by the presence of God, by the example of Jesus, to face the tough times and to hold our heads high regardless of the attacks that come our way. Jesus is the example. God is the actual source of the strength. But Jesus is the catalyst, right? Where did Jesus draw his strength? From God. Same source of strength we have, but we learned about it by observing Jesus. So we can do all things through the Anointed One who strengthens us by his example, by his inspiration, and by being the catalyst through whom we learn to lean into God. That doesn't mean, once again, being armchair players at life. Sitting back and saying, okay, God, we're going to let you take care of this for us. Although Joe made an excellent point in an email to me the other day when he said he lets God do the worrying for him. That's good advice for sure. But we're the ones that have to get out there and scrap it out in the challenges of life. Jesus walked this lonesome valley. He had to walk it by himself. Oh, nobody else could walk it for him. He had to walk it by himself. We must walk the lonesome valleys. We have to walk them by ourselves. Nobody else can walk them for us. We have to walk them by ourselves. It doesn't mean we are bereft of the presence of God. God walks with us through it all. But that doesn't mean we don't have to walk through the crap and even the valleys. And someday, even the valley of the shadow of death, which Paul was about to walk through even at this moment, even at the moment he was dictating this to Timothy. God will supply all our needs according to God's glorious riches in the Anointed One, Jesus. So again, God is the source of strength. God is the owner, if you will, of the wealth. And God makes that available and makes that known through Jesus. Needs is an important word, and it's a very different word than wants. Our modern Western materialistic culture has become so caught up in things that there are very few people who understand the difference. But very few people who have ever had any sort of reliance for extended periods of time on money and the things that money can buy for a period of time. Very few people who get the difference between like that, who get the difference between a need and a want. They presume that a want is a need. Therefore, you have people in churches, mega churches, materialistic churches, praying for material things like large homes and fancy cars, sports cars, and so forth, rather than just some sort of basic transportation to get around while people in their own cities and states are dying, not only from the coronavirus, but also from problems that preceded the coronavirus, such as hunger and abuse. So God will meet our needs. And that doesn't mean that everyone's needs get met. It doesn't mean that everyone who prays correctly has her or his needs met. It means that God is working to have needs met, that God has established ways for all needs to be met. That doesn't mean that interference stops. You know? Sometimes people become their own worst enemies, but let's not blame them. Playing the blame game is a terrible practice. Most of the time they don't know they're doing it, and they need help with that too. But then there are others who are selfish and greedy and power hungry, and they usurp available resources rather than share, so that people in need often are still deprived. That's not God's plan, and it's not what God is pushing toward in the world and through God's people who are willing to live out of the riches, the divine riches that have been made known to us through Jesus. Paul is sending greetings from Rome back to Philippi. He is mentioning the saints, that is, the faithful ones. And he slips in there even the saints from the emperor's household. So Paul had an impact on leading even people who were in service to the emperor, maybe even lived right there in the palace. Maybe had been some of the guards who were on duty watching Paul, part of the 24/7 shifts. And they had become followers of Jesus. And they send greetings back to their sisters and brothers in the church at Philippi. That's an exciting kind of thought, isn't it? The emperor would have had no problem with it. Remember, the emperor was a polytheist. And as long as you didn't, irritate the emperor by not doing the few things the emperor required to honor emperor worship, the emperor was just fine with whoever else you wanted to worship. As long as you didn't threaten allegiance to the emperor, which Paul clearly did. Now, I'm not saying that those people in the emperor's household who had taken up following Jesus were safe and sound. But that would be an intriguing study. Maybe an intriguing sermon someday. You all are the best. I love you and I miss you. And I can't wait to see you. The grace of Jesus, the Anointed One, be with your spirit. I'll see you soon. I'll be thinking of you lots more than I'll be seeing you for a few weeks. But I'll see you soon. Even if you're not a member of Silverside, please join us for our anniversary celebration on September the 13th. Also, there'll be a special online celebration on the actual birthday of the church, which is the 5th. Also, some Sunday afternoon concerts will begin on September the 13th. More about that from your friendly music person. That would be David Clark. And then we'll try to get other information up online soon. Take good care of yourselves.